Today we have Jeff, Executive Director of Mesa County Public Health, with special guest Dan, Planning and Development Director for the City of Fruita. Thank you both so much for taking the time to join us today. We've asked Jeff to join us to give a brief update and answer questions from local businesses. We've also invited Dan to give an overview of how the City of Fruita is responding in hopes of supporting our business community. Jeff, will you please give us an update on where Mesa County currently stands and what we can expect in the upcoming weeks?
Sure, thanks Kayla. Hi everyone. I'm going to start with just our numbers from the report that we put out last night. So as of yesterday, we have done nearly 15,000 tests in Mesa County, and that's most of it's at the fairgrounds. We have a drive-through facility that we've had from the very beginning. We run about 75 or 80 people a day through there, and then we've got various partners that do testing that contribute to this as well. Our cumulative positives right now are 341. So if any of you are following this, you've noticed that we've increased quite a bit in the past, say, month and a half. Our number of positives just for yesterday was 12. And then for the past 2 weeks, we had 100 positive tests. So it's going up, but we're staying stable because we do calculate the percent positive, both for 2 weeks and then cumulatively, and we're hovering right around 2% positive. And why that's important is because with our current variants, the safer at home variants, which has allowed us to open businesses to 50%, and then outdoor activities really have no limit as long as they're spaced. If we get to about a 15% positivity rate, then the state would ask us to submit a mitigation plan. So we've stayed well below that. A lot of people know that we do have an opportunity to write an application for another variance, which is protect our neighbor. And under that variance, our threshold is 5%. So we just wanted to see with this surge in cases, we wanted to see if we could maintain a low positivity rate. And then with schools opening back up and then CMU next week as well, we want to give it a couple weeks to see, if we get any spikes. But then we do plan on submitting that next variance in a couple weeks. So as far as some of the characteristics of our data, this past 2 weeks, about 35% of those that were positive were between the ages of 20 and 39. And then we also keep track of positives by category, by source of infection or setting. And 33% were from family members, so transferred family to family or family member to family member. And then 19% were place of employment. And we watched that, and it has shifted over the past few weeks because really we were getting hit hard by travel. People who were traveling outside Mesa County, we were seeing about 33% of our cases as a result of travel. But now the place of employment is a little concerning because we know that people are going to work or going places when they've possibly been diagnosed, or they have symptoms, or they're awaiting test results but have symptoms, and so they're going out, and as a result they're infecting others. I mentioned this was in the paper today, but we did have a situation this past weekend where there was a summer camp, and someone was positive, and they showed up to this, and actually they knew they were positive because we were just waiting on test results. And so as a result of that, my team had to call 59 people. And we did that, starting at 6 p.m. on Friday, and we completed that by 10 a.m. on Saturday. So we do that very quickly to make sure that there's no further spread. But it's a lot of work. 59 is actually the most contact traces that we've had to do from a single positive case. So I'm just trying to put the message out to folks that if you've got the symptoms, even if you're not testing positive, please stay away from others as much as possible, because we're trying to control that spread. A few things that are going on. Well, we know the mask orders out there, and with that, we did implement a 5-star program. So we're trying to recognize businesses that are following the best practices, and really for no other reason than to create a resource directory for people who are seeking out safe places. So if anybody's interested in that, you can certainly send me an email. My email address is jeff.kuhr@mesacounty.us, and my last name is spelled Kuhr. But that 5-star rating, if you're interested, we would come out and we would check out your facility. And it's really based off of 5 things. It's implementation of the mask order, employee mask use, facility capacity, so not exceeding that 50% capacity, not allowing groups of 10 or larger than 10 to enter the facility. Those would be 10 in the same party. Implementing cleaning protocols and having a schedule for that, and then actively monitoring symptoms of employees. So those are did I say 5? It's 6 things. Those are the 6 things we're looking for to get that designation. And as I said, we'd be happy to come and work with you. And otherwise, I think that's it. As you all know, and as I mentioned, we are anticipating school, have been working closely with School District 51. We do have some basic things that we would like for all the schools to follow. I know there's a lot of confusion out there about, are we supposed to wear masks or not? So we're working with the schools to try to get rid of any misinterpretations, and then also to be clear about what our process is. If there happens to be someone in the school that has symptoms or test positive, what are the processes for that? And does it mean closing down a school? No, it does not. We would follow the same processes that we do for the community as a whole. So with that, I'll conclude. We'll hear from Dan, and then we'll take questions.
Great. Dan, the City of Fruita has been putting together some plans for outdoor seating and facilities in the Fruita community. Can you give us an update on what we can expect with that?
Absolutely. Thank you, Kayla, and thank you, Jeff. We here at the City of Fruita definitely really appreciate our partnerships with both of your agencies, and have definitely heeded your advice, Jeff, from your group, and appreciate how timely and how quickly you've gotten back to us with inquiries, and certainly that stands to be true with the business community as well. Before I wade into our outdoor seating expansion project, I just wanted to touch on 4 elements that the City of Fruita is currently working on with respect to the coronavirus relief funds that were allocated to us via the Caris Act through the state, and that is operational, economic recovery, social recovery, and educational assistance. Just to give you a little bit of context, the operational elements are, like PPE, qualified personnel costs, technological improvements, things through that vein. Economic recovery would be very akin to what we're working on with this outdoor seating expansion project, which in a few minutes here, I'll go ahead and share my screen, and you get an opportunity to take a peek at what those renderings look like. And then social recovery, our expenses like, assisting with the food banks, the local food banks in the area, which I believe is distributed mainly with the Food Bank of the Rockies. And then another fun project that we're working on through the context of educational assistance is working with the Fruita schools on potentially using some of these dollars to create classroom kits to expand outdoor learning spaces in each of the facilities to help, not just, mitigate any outbreaks or any, negative outcomes that, sort of surface with the virus, but certainly, outdoor learning spaces have been a model independent of coronavirus that, have been elements that schools have tried to incorporate into their facilities. And I think it would be a, good bang for our buck to potentially wade into that with the Fruita schools and be able to, help in any way stay open and be able to continue to educate the youth in the area. So without going too much further into all of those, I just want to have an opportunity to kind of share our screen here and take you through these renderings. So again, this has been definitely a very quick iterative process over the last, I would say, maybe 3 weeks. As many of you are well aware, the City of Fruita finished up our 2019 Fruita in Motion comp plan last year. It was adopted the early portion of this year, but the public process ended last year. And we worked with the group as a sub-consultant, and their name is Studio Seed, and the individual that owns that business, her name is Cheney Bostic, and she's an urban designer and an architect. And so when we had these coronavirus relief fund dollars allocated to the city, we were trying to figure out how could we, wade into creating outdoor spaces just to help businesses have a safe place for patrons to come and interact with our local economy, both in the downtown and in the South Fruita area. And she, to our surprise, but also we were very lucky that she'd been working with a state organization called Downtown Colorado Inc. And she's been putting together essentially kind of like a lookbook for those communities all throughout the state and how they can wade into the outdoor seating expansions. And so we worked with her pretty quickly to get these renderings together and have met with several of the local businesses in our downtown. And I know Kayla has done the same both in the downtown and in the Cocopelli, and are prepared to share these with you, not only as an opportunity for us to get some feedback, but just to let you know that we are thinking about this and we're trying to help. There certainly is no roadmap on how to do this kind of stuff. So we're certainly just trying to heed the advice of folks that are doing this on the Front Range and all throughout the state, and try to do something that will be positive for our local economy. So as you can see on the screen, and can everybody see, I'm assuming, just nod your head, thumbs up, thank you. So this is the North Mulberry Street plan. Aspen, and on the bottom left part of your screen is essentially the intersection between Aspen and North Mulberry. So right along, our main drag northbound, and then at that northernmost property boundary would be the start of the alley, and those are the improvements that we did a few years back. So here is a north-facing street view of these outdoor seating expansions, and again, this would be a full street closure from the intersection of East Aspen and North Mulberry, between Aspen and the alley. We've got a couple different kind of elevations to walk through, but these 5 or so tubular steel structures that will be placed in the sidewalk are going to be in the 20-foot high range, with those kind of Edison bulb, low lumen count LED lights that string across the street, basically from either the sidewalk or from the back of walk. We've got a yurt incorporated into the space, and then essentially a gated off area for patrons within, I believe, going to be about 1,000 feet, be able to serve food in these spaces and alcoholic beverages in these spaces that will be essentially licensed through some of the modifications that the state has done with the liquor licensing regulations. And so obviously that's going to take some discussion between the city and the state, but that's the overall goal right now. As far as lighting up the space, these lights are going to be a part of that. We're going to use kind of landscaping with these troughs on wheels, which essentially create a fire lane for EMS to be able to kind of push those out of the way, and if they need to get in there and do any sort of emergency services. And then we've got these cylinder-looking things are cisterns that are going to be filled with water, that are going to have the 3/4-inch plumbing fittings that can actually water these the landscaping, and then also at night they illuminate, so which will bring some more light into the space. We'll also probably incorporate them all throughout the design to add some structural components to both the tent, just the tent structures, and then also the gate features, just to make sure that we've got sound structures that aren't going to blow away in the wind or succumb to any inclement weather. So this is the north-facing elevation that essentially is on North Mulberry facing Aspen. So you get an opportunity to kind of look at what it'll look like from, almost like the hot tomato businesses, and then, the most northern elevation of Suds Brothers Brewery. And then we've got kind of some street facing perspectives, both from the north and then also from the south, just to give you an idea of how that's going to interact with the space. Moving along to North Peach, again, same concept from essentially Aspen all the way up to the alley on North Peach. Emergency access plan as part of the actual project itself, and then obviously some different elements incorporated into the space just to maintain continuity between both, and then also trying to make sure that everybody has all those expectations well managed on how it can actually be put together. So similar concept with the tubular steel and the string lighting, the LED string lighting, a little bit more space here for food service, and then also just the ability to spread out, again, maintaining that 12-foot wide fire lane for EMS, similar trough setup with the cisterns and wine barrels and other elements. We have not reached out to any one food truck provider, just giving you kind of an idea of like, hey, we can fit one into the space, just to add some food components to that area. We think that would be work rather well. And again, these are not all absolutely it's going to be 100% like this. I think it will be from the design perspective, but if food trucks decide to come and interact with this space, great. If they don't, that's not necessarily a linchpin to the overall design. As many of you are well aware, just looking at these, we do have these heating elements that are propane fed that kind of lend itself to being able to have this be a multi-season type project. So that's certainly something that's on our mind, and I'll just quickly scroll through the rest of these elevations just so you get some perspective on what it's going to look like from obviously Aspen all the way to the alley. And then here's some street facing perspectives that one is toward the alley and one is kind of viewed from the lounge area at the brewery. But again, these spaces are not specific to just any eatery or any business. They're essentially going to be public spaces, hopefully utilized by different age groups and people that just are looking for an opportunity to have a cup of coffee in the morning, eat some lunch during the afternoon, possibly patronize one of the local breweries in the evening, and potentially bring food out to those spaces or what have you. So one of the questions I get all the time is like, how are you going to clean the space? We're trying to figure out how to outsource that function at this current stage. We've got a couple of bids back from cleaning services, and we're going to have some sanitation stations, likely porta potties and other things that are going to be incorporated in here, just so we kind of maintain the ability to keep it looking pretty tidy and neat, just so it gets used or it has a high degree of utilization. So, and with that, I'm sorry, I probably went over the 10 minutes, but that's what we've been up to, and like Jeff said, be happy to answer any questions.
Great. Thank you so much, Dan. I appreciate it. So we will go ahead and open it up for questions. We did have a few questions come up during Jeff's presentation, so I wanted to address those first. What are some of the benefits for the community of the Protect Our Neighbors phase? And if you could just go into some of the specifics on what that variance order looks like, Jeff, I think that would also be helpful.
Okay. It's not a whole lot different, which is kind of why we didn't get that application submitted immediately. It's still caps us at 50%, but right now our indoor space is capped at 175 people. And where I see that affecting us the most is with our places of worship. We've got facilities that'll handle 1,000 people. And so to get them at 50% would be good. So there's really no cap on the numbers. And also, if we stay in compliance or within what they consider below that 5% threshold, we do get to increase that 50% capacity incrementally over time. I believe it's 5% every 2 or 4 weeks. So it would be nice, because certainly we've shown that we can sustain this. It would be nice to get those 5% increases over time as well to get us back up to, 70, 80%.
And is Mesa County planning on applying for that variance request?
Yeah, we are. We work on it regularly. We've got the application. We were going to submit it right off the bat when it was available. We had all the letters of support and everything, and then we decided to back up a little bit because we saw an increase in cases. But we will definitely apply for it. The application is ready to go. We had to show the state. They wanted to see some specifics on certain metrics. And then what we would consider early warning signs. So we've gotten all that put together. Really, we're looking at our capacity to increase testing as needed, our contact tracers, our hospital capacity, which not only from Mesa County but from the surrounding areas because our hospitals are regional, and then supplies. So those areas we had to show that we had a plan if we started to have a little bit of pressure, and which we do, and so yes, we will submit.
And does the 175 cap apply to healthcare facilities such as hospitals and large physician practices?
Well, it really is about a room more than it is about an entire facility. So, it's 50% of a room, and by room I mean if separate rooms have entrances, exits, bathroom facilities, things like that. So there can be different sections of a building that could have its own 175 cap, but it's 50% of normal capacity or 175, whichever is smaller. So there are ways to kind of work with that, and I'd be happy to kind of help out if we're trying to figure something out.
Okay, great. And Dan, what does the parking plan look like for the outdoor seating project?
So do you mean parking plan in the context of where people are going to be able to park, or the parking stalls that will be removed as a part of this project?
I think it would be good to touch on both, just to specify how many parking spaces these outdoor seating would take away, and then what your plans are for additional parking because of the parking spaces that would be removed.
Well, I think that a part of any parking plan, one of the things that needs to be currently evaluated is, essentially people are using North Mulberry and North Peach to both park in the Civic Center parking lot and then also park in the parking lot that's just to the west of the Hot Tomato and to the north of Suds Brothers. So I think that we can tackle a lot of the connecting people to existing facilities through wayfinding, which is something that could certainly take place on the Circle or northbound on North Mesa, or even quite frankly along Aspen as you're headed all the way to North Elm, just to be able to find those facilities that are currently available. But again, no parking stalls are being proposed to be removed within Aspen. There's 8 parking stalls on each street frontage that are corresponding with North Mulberry and North Peach, with a total of 16. And the plan is, again, for a full road closure. So those would be removed from from use, I guess, for people. But I think it's important to realize that there are public parking areas that are within the proximity of those. Again, there's a parking lot that's to the northwest of the area on North Mulberry, and then there's the Civic Center parking lot to the northeast of North Peach. So most of those facilities are really within close proximity, and we feel like will be utilized more as a result of this.
Perfect. And then for the alcohol consumption areas, will alcohol need to be served in plastic cups with lids? And can people walk from Peach to Mulberry with a beer, or will they have to go to the adjacent seating area?
So I really think that this is an education piece. So once we get the liquor licensing elements figured out, we'll have to come up with those parameters, and then they'll have to be actually, visible in the actual space itself. And then, very abundantly and clearly explained and vetted with the businesses, just to make sure that we're kind of working in lockstep with one another. There are two different licenses that can be pursued by the city of Fruita. One would be kind of like a common consumptive area, and then other ones would just be permitting a specific off-premise site. And we haven't necessarily nailed down exactly how we want to do that, just because it's got to work with the existing business models, and it's not just the breweries that serve alcohol in the downtown. So making sure that there is, adequate availability to be able to utilize that space independent of your current business model, because we've got some folks that are just doing outdoor seating, some folks that have their entire business opened up, and obviously adhering to those capacity standards. But there'll be more to come on that, and I think that'll be a little bit more of working with the liquor licensing laws, just to back our way into kind of what are the existing businesses doing, and how can we be the most effective. Truth be told, I think that, just like a special event, you can have the plastic lid on top of a pint of beer, and then actually they can walk that out to the space. But the real crux to that is the education piece of the actual bartender or business saying that is the permanent space, you have to go there. And so working that out with different local businesses that serve alcohol in the downtown is going to be kind of an overall messaging campaign that we'll have to be able to make sure it's clearly explained.
Okay, thank you. And Jeff, how long will the 5-star rating program be in place for?
We'll keep it in place, through the entirety of this. As I said, it really is to recognize places, because there are a lot of people that, are afraid to go out, that are unsure of if it's going to be a safe destination. And so we'll continue to do that, and certainly, we'll change as we learn, but it's a pretty good start.
And will businesses be penalized for not qualifying for this 5-star rating?
No, not at all. And we don't do enforcement. We don't actively go out and look for places, and us coming to look at your facility for 5-star is not an opportunity for us to penalize you in any way. So no.
Okay, perfect. Thank you. And with school resuming soon and the uncertainty of how this will impact our current numbers, what are some of the plans to help have testing available and decrease the turnaround time for the results?
That's a great question. Actually, I was going to bring that up. So yeah, right now, if people have symptoms and they call us, we can get them in to be tested within 24 to 48 hours. If they have no symptoms, which means they called us because they feel like they were exposed through some other situation and they want to be checked, then we usually get them in for testing in 5 days, because the CDC recommends that after that exposure, you wait 7 days. We're going to assume that a couple days have passed, between the exposure and the phone call. So then when you pair that with the turnaround time is as much as 7 days right now, which really is frustrating. And so for that asymptomatic person, you almost have gone through the entire quarantine period, 14 days. So it doesn't make much sense, but for peace of mind, you want to know whether you've got it or not. So we've been working. We had a meeting on Friday there's a contractor that the state has hooked up with, and they first were talking about putting a lab in Mesa County that was a state-run lab. And my agency, my building does have lab space that we could have used. But now they've sort of shifted and said that they're going to have that contractor use their own lab, which is in Centennial. And then they would have that contractor also run the testing facility. And so with that, they would fly those samples back every afternoon, and we could have a 24 to 48 hour turnaround on testing. Because right now that is a huge barrier for us, because if we don't know for 7 days whether someone was positive, we don't start contact tracing till then. I mean, all of a sudden we've just kind of escalated the issue, and it's really a burden. So we were supposed to implement that the beginning of next week. So Kayla, I'll let you know and you can give an update, but hopefully that'll happen because it's a huge issue right now.
Yes, thank you, Jeff.
Mm-hmm.
Here's another question. This is more of a statement also, but the mask mandate has created some challenges for us. Some of our patrons aren't willing to wear masks and they aren't always willing to accept offered accommodations. Enforcement is challenging when expectations within the community seem to vary business by business. So I guess how can businesses enforce the mask mandate, and are businesses expected to enforce the mandate?
So for businesses that aren't enforcing it, we get calls. You know, we can work with them to help them do it as best they can. You know, we're not to the point where it becomes a penalty, and that's sort of why we implemented the 5-star program, because people can choose to go certain places based off of the extent to which that's being implemented in local businesses. However, we do have some pretty clear guidance that came from the state that kind of pulls in some things from the ADA and then also from governor orders that are clear on how businesses can handle it if they choose to strictly implement this mask order. Then we've got a document that we could send out. So once again, you know, either send Kayla a note or send me a note, and I would be glad to connect you with that. But you know, that's where it is right now.
Okay,
if you haven't noticed, it's very divisive. So I do just try to straddle that, and so I'm asking for businesses that, you know, choose to do this to you know, if they want to work with us, we're glad to do it.
Great, thank you. In one of the School District 51 meetings, they stated they were short or limited on supplies. How is Mesa County supporting or providing help with PPE?
We've got a stockpile, so if they ran into a surge issue, we would tap into the local medical cache. That's the Western Colorado Medical Cache. So we do have PPE supplies between my agency, the local hospitals. Now, certainly we count those toward any sort of a surge on a hospital as well. But right now, there's not a bottleneck in replenishing supplies. And I know that District 51 waited maybe an additional week to make sure they had their own PPE supplies in hand. So, to me, that's not an issue right now, PPE. So I think would be good. Now, if our hospitals got overwhelmed, certainly it might be a different story, but I think everyone is doing their best to make sure that doesn't happen.
Great. So I have another specific question, and it says, if a customer, which the leasee, rents a space to hold a gathering for, let's just say, a celebration of life event, the venue, the lessor, has represented that there is sufficient space to hold the number of attendees and to stay within the prescribed distancing guidelines. Does it then become the responsibility of the leasee to ensure distancing compliance?
Well, that's a good question, and I guess we would need to work on that on a case-by-case basis. You know, we've got a team that deals specifically with this, because, you know, we've provided guidance for outdoor events, indoor events. The indoor one may not be posted yet, but I'll make sure we get that up by this weekend. And so we would be glad to work with folks. I guess an example would be, you know, we had something that was scheduled for this past weekend, and there was going to be alcohol served, but the alcohol license was through the owner of the facility. So in that certain instance, because we do work closely with the Alcohol Enforcement Division, Brian Turner, in that instance, it would have been the responsibility of the owner of the facility and not the person who rented the facility in relation to alcohol. So maybe using that as guidance on how that would move forward.
Okay, perfect, thank you. And do you have COVID-19 case data related to Fruita specifically? We
don't keep anything by by geography, just because, and actually from the very beginning, people would say, well, I want to know where those positive cases are so we can avoid those parts of the community. It starts to get into that protected health information when we start keeping that. Now, by Fruita as a whole, I think it's large enough that we wouldn't run the risk of identifying an individual. So I'm sort of dancing around this. I can see if we can do that. Certainly we have addresses for everyone. I wonder if we could start to map that out a little bit. You know, we change our web a lot based off of feedback from residents and business owners in the community. So that's a good thought.
Okay, thank you. And here's some feedback for Dan. This comes from a business owner in Fruita saying that we need as many parking spaces as possible downtown. I've seen restaurants add plexiglass in between the booths to allow more indoor seating, not taking away from other businesses. For those businesses who are currently offering curbside pickup, they need as many parking spaces and roads open as possible. Do you have any alternative plans that you're looking at for the city for outdoor seating if it does seem like taking away those parking spaces could harm business?
Well, I think like anything that we do, I mean, it is a trial run, right? So I certainly, you know, if after, 30 days, which is kind of how we're going to license this space and like a temporary encroachment type permit, we're going to need that feedback from folks. But one of the things that I would respond to that statement with is that if you look at the areas that we're planning to try and create outdoor seating, they are all within 200 to 250 feet of an existing parking lot. So certainly we can work with those businesses, since likely most of those parking lots are public, to try and connect them to additional spaces where they can continue their operations from curbside pickup. So that certainly was thought through from our perspective, and tried to address that. Again, if people are familiar with the Fruita Health Club building, there's a parking lot just to the north of that we have gotten permission to use for a multitude of different types of uses for curbside pickup, outdoor seating, et cetera, so on and so forth. So we're trying to not have a detrimental impact on the parking situation within the downtown area. But again, like Jeff was saying, creating safe outdoor spaces where people feel like they are completely considered from a health perspective, as far as it being a safe environment, I think is goal number one. And then, kind of goal number one with an asterisk is to make sure that space does not, do more harm than good. So, again, critiques are certainly more than welcomed, and we want to listen to those. And much like Jeff changing the website on a regular basis from feedback he gets from people, we view this project as the exact same.
Great, thank you. And do you have a turnaround time, or when you guys had hoped to have these outdoor spaces available?
Yeah, so we got 3 of the bids back from contractors. We're hiring a general contractor to put these spaces together. They got the bonding power, insurance power, and essentially the mobilization ability to deliver the space in a timely fashion. So we'll likely start doing the actual concrete work for the tubular steel for the lighting within the next week or so. Everything that you see in that space, from the fencing material to the tents to the bistro tables and to the lawn chairs, all that stuff will go on order within the next week. And then most of those have about a 2-week time frame as far as turnaround's concerned. One of the reasons, and this is a little outside of the scope of your question, Caleb, but I want to make sure I touched on this. Part of the reason why we didn't do any specific renderings for the Cocopelli area is that all those parking lots are private. So we're planning on just essentially buying additional tents and seating opportunities to be able to essentially say, hey, is there a particular location where these businesses in the Cocopelli would like to set these up, and we will work with them on parking plans and sort of setup spaces and all of that, just to make sure that it's done in a tasteful fashion. But we really can't go and propose building stuff on private property. So, but we're going to have those resources and that equipment available just to create that opportunity for the South Fruita area as well.
Great, thank you. So here's another question that I received. I'm sure many of you have read about the Sturgis rally and South Dakota's governor having an open state, no mask mandates or limitations. I'm hoping to be able to be open as normal. When can we expect full capacity limits in businesses? And do you expect that anytime in the future, Jeff?
Well, it really depends on the vaccine. That sounds like just I'm defaulting to what we keep hearing in the media, but there has to be something in place that that protects us from contracting the disease or that stops the spread. And so that's what it'll take for the most part. However, and I know there have been a couple drugs approved to be used, in the healthcare setting. And also, if there's something that could decrease the severity for the most at-risk population, then, that could be something as well. Because, if you look at our local numbers, and we just did this, we had 22 deaths from influenza in Mesa County for the 2017-18 flu season. So, we've had, as of this morning, just a few minutes ago, I learned we do have our third death in Mesa County due to COVID-19. But so far in Mesa County, the influenza has been, far worse as far as hospitalizations and deaths go. But, I think there are a lot of partnerships in place that are controlling this. So I think if we just maintain what we are, if we get on that next variance, and if we can open up gradually, the 100% is going to be down the road a ways, unfortunately, but that's why it's so important for us to work together to make sure we stay where we are and to keep our variances.
And I know our bars and breweries have especially been affected with the mandate to not be able to serve past a certain time. Would that be something included in the variance order as well with Mesa County?
We can look at that, certainly, because also in that variance is that we would have the discretion on masks as well locally. But so that's always something to look at. I just got a note from someone the other day asking about this. Our alcohol consumption in Mesa County has to end by 11 p.m. The governor, well, bars aren't even open in the rest of the state unless there are counties with a similar variance. And let me go aside with that and say that there are 15 counties right now with similar variances that are in a red or a yellow state because their numbers are so high, they're on the verge of losing that variance. And so we might be the last standing county. So our bars are open, which is unique. And then also for the restaurants that serve alcohol in the rest of the state, a couple weeks ago, the governor said, last call has to be at 10 p.m. So with that, we do have a little bit of an edge here in Mesa County, which is great. Long answer to say that we'll continue to look at that and roll it out as necessary, or as we can. It's all necessary, right?
Yes, thank you. Dan, is the plan to remove the outdoor seating spaces, or will these become permanent features after the pandemic?
I think we're going to take it a month at a time and see if this is actually beneficial. Because again, just to double down on what Jeff said, like we're trying to help as an organization create opportunities for people to be able to interact in our local economy in a safe way. And if that makes sense beyond the pandemic, then we'll certainly have that conversation. Many of the materials and equipment that are in this space right now are all temporary. They're more akin to like a special event. And so, certainly if there was a strong desire for them to be permanent, they would have to likely change and they would change in design. And so we would certainly want to get feedback on what that looks like. So, there's definitely a, kind of like a phase 1, phase 2 of this effort, but you know, we're essentially just taking it a month at a time.
And how do we manage social distancing in bars to ensure, one, we can continue to do this service, and two, they don't significantly contribute to the increase in the spread?
So we do send teams out to the bars just to see how things are going. And we also work with Brian Turner with the Alcohol Enforcement Division, and it's gone very well because, you know, at the beginning when the governor closed down bars for the rest of the state, I got some criticism. Well, Mesa County is going to become a hotspot because our bars are open. But I've never chosen to do things on an industry by industry basis. So that's why we go out and we just monitor the facilities, and then we work with them to be successful. And so the social distancing is a part of that. You know, the things we look for are they serving or are they allowing consumption past 11? Are they keeping it 50%? And with that 50%, are their tables arranged so that the closest anyone can be while seated is more than 6 feet apart? Do tables allow for more than groups of 10? Because if they do, then, you know, that we don't want that. We don't want mixed parties at a table. So we are working with the bars very closely, and they're doing a great job. Actually, I think all of our businesses are doing a fantastic job. And when we look at, I saw that came from Jack. So when we look at our data by our categories, which, you know, we chose to do this, we categorize this so that we can see, rather than having a spike in numbers and have some blanket approach, these categories allow us to have a targeted approach. And, you know, our retail businesses, cases in individuals who visited a local business, cumulatively, we've only ever had one this entire time of the 341 cases. So it's not been an issue so far. So between the monitoring, the physical facility itself, and then by looking at, you know, where are our positives coming from, I think it's very manageable for us.
Great. Thank you so much. I think we've covered all of the questions that I've received. Unless there's any last minute questions that anybody wants to submit, I'd like to give Jeff and Dan an opportunity for some closing remarks. And again, thank you both so much. I really appreciate your time today. This has been great.
Thank you. I'll just start by saying that I thoroughly enjoy working with Fruita on this whole thing. Mike Bennett, Turi, Dan have been great to work with. I know I got to meet a few weeks ago with the city council, and it's been awesome. And Dan, I think this layout for the streets has been great. You know, if you travel to other communities in the state of Colorado, you see it happening. I've asked some of our cities, our communities, why aren't you guys doing this? And, you know, it's up to each community to do it on their own. But I am so glad to see this, because being outdoors is key to this. If we can get people outdoors, we don't really have a limit on numbers. It makes perfect sense. So thank you for doing that. Kayla, it's been great to work with you as well, and the various businesses. So hopefully we can partner a little bit on the 5-star thing. I know right now it's branded with Grand Junction Chamber, but we can implement the same thing with you as well, and do it for the Fruita area. So I just want to say thanks to everyone. And as I mentioned, if you have any thoughts, any suggestions, any criticisms, please send me an email. It's jeff.kuhr@mesacounty.us.
Thank you, Jeff. And Dan, did you have any closing remarks?
Again, I just want to say thank you to the Fruita Chamber. Thank you, Kayla, for putting this on. This is an excellent opportunity for us to get the word out, you know, on projects that we're trying to accomplish. Appreciate the partnership on that front. And Jeff, thank you for, you know, really all that you do. I know you probably don't have 5 minutes to spare throughout any day, Monday through Sunday. So I appreciate you kind of wading into this with us as far as, you know, the community center, and then likely these outdoor seating spaces. And so we certainly very much appreciate that. One little thing I failed to mention in the beginning is that there are some restrictions to these dollars as far as the outdoor space is concerned, and there are certainly cleaning and sanitation efforts that are a part of that, and the funding is essentially available only until December 31st of this year. So when you think about the question that was asked earlier with regards to how long is this going to be, really from our standpoint, we're going to think about it on a 30-day by 30-day basis, but that really is the end date in sight for this particular project as far as the funding is concerned. Obviously, that subject has changed based off of the use of the space. The next thing is that, as a part of the economic recovery, the city is also working with the business incubator on trying to create a revolving loan fund that will essentially be a grant program in partnership with the VIC on that Fruita businesses can certainly apply for, and there'll be more messaged out certainly through the chamber on that front once that information becomes available. And with that, just thank you both, and thank you for everyone that took the time to get on the call this morning. Okay.
Great. Thank you so much. Again, I appreciate your time, and thank you everyone for joining us. This will be available later for viewing, so we will share it with you all on our website as well. Thank you. Have a great day.